Various websites and social media posts claim that you do not have to pay council tax if you do not consent to the legislation. Please do not believe these. Council tax comes about by way of statute, and the liability to pay council tax arises under the provisions of the Local Government Finance Act of 1992 and the subsequent regulations thereto. And in short, failure to pay your council tax could lead to bankruptcy and, in some cases, imprisonment. Allow me to explain. So many of these posts claim that if a law comes about by way of legislation, then an individual has a choice of whether or not to contract with the local council or corporation, as they are often referred to, and as to whether or not to pay the council tax arising from said statute. But let me be absolutely clear, this is not true. An individual does not have this choice, and their individual consent is not required for legislation to apply to them. Thus, the liability to pay council tax is not contingent upon any such consent, nor any existence of a contractual relationship with the council. Indeed, this is not required. So let me run through briefly what will happen if someone who is required to pay council tax, that is, that they don't have any kind of exemption, but fails or refuses to pay it. Failure to pay council tax is going to give rise to the service of what is known as a demand notice. Some local authorities prefer to refer to this as a reminder, but whether it is referred to as a reminder or a demand notice, it is asking you and inviting you to pay your council tax or make a new arrangement for paying your council tax when it falls due. Even if there is an outstanding appeal against the council tax band with the Valuation Office, you will still need to pay the monthly instalments while this claim or appeal is being considered, because after all, it might not be successful. If after this first reminder or demand notice, the payment still hasn't been received by the local authority, they will then issue a further demand notice, which most local authorities refer to as a final notice. Once this notice has been issued, you will have lost the right to pay the council tax by instalments, and the whole outstanding balance will be due in full. If you were unable to pay it in full, as instructed on the notice, you will have to discuss an alternative arrangement with the local authority to their satisfaction. If after the service of this final notice, payment has still not been made, the local authority may and probably will seek a magistrate court summons to seek a liability order in the magistrate's court against you. A liability order can then be enforced in many different ways. For example, an attachment to earnings, an attachment of allowances, a distress winding up petition taking control of goods, or a charging order. A charging order might be if you have a property that has some equity in it, and the local authority can seek a charging order against the property to secure the value of the council tax. There are some legal defences against the issue of a liability order for which you will need to seek formal legal advice. If it's deemed that you cannot afford to pay the council tax and it's above the bankruptcy threshold, currently standing at £5,000, the local authority may and probably will start bankruptcy proceedings against you. If this happens and you are declared bankrupt, then your bank accounts will be frozen. The official receiver will investigate all of your affairs and control any of your spending for the next 3 years. You will no longer be able to control any of your assets, and any assets that you might acquire during the period of your bankruptcy, such as inheritance and insurance, will be lost. You are unlikely to be able to obtain any credit, certainly over £500, and your home and any of your assets could be sold to pay for your debts. And if all of that didn't sound bad enough, if the local authority believe that there has been willful refusal or culpable neglect with regard to making payment against a liability order, then the local authority may apply to the magistrate's court for a warrant to commit the debtor to prison. Now, some people might believe that imprisonment is not a lawful way for the local authority to enforce liability for unpaid council tax. However, this very issue was considered by the Divisional Court in 2018, where a claimant applied for judicial review of the system for enforcing liability for unpaid council tax by way of imprisonment. In this case, the claimant had been committed to prison for 81 days for falling into arrears with the council tax payments, but the application for judicial review was refused. So this is but a brief overview of what might happen if you were to believe such social media posts telling you that you don't need to pay your council tax. So I'm here to warn you not to believe such posts, but if you believe that you might qualify for some kind of discount or exemption, then you need to be in touch with your local authority to discuss it with them. And if you are in payment difficulties yourself, please Do not ignore it, because it's only going to get worse if you ignore it. Many people don't like to face problems like this, but believe me, they're only going to get worse and worse as time goes on if you ignore them. So please do contact all of the relevant services that are there to help you, and indeed your local authority. So please share this video with someone that you think needs to hear this message, and as always, thank you for watching.